Capital Connection from the Illinois State Capitol.
Welcome back. Joining us now is House Republican Jeff Keicher. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are midway through April, month and a half or so, give or take, depending on how long it takes to get the budget passed, left in this session. It was deadline week in the House. From the House Republican standpoint, how are things running in the up in the House?
Challenging, right? You know, there's certainly some things that we're able to advance, but one of the biggest problems that we're seeing is when you look at the number of bills that House Republicans have been able to pass out of committee, to get out of rules, and to get on the floor, our proportion relative to our membership is not what it should be. So I'd like to see a little bit better ability for Republicans, especially on bills that are important to our people that we represent in all 102 counties. I'd like to see those bills get a little bit better attention, a little bit better traction, and at least get an up or down vote in committees.
So going into a couple of the legislative items that you have going forward, you know, trying to pass through the House, one that I thought was really interesting was a bill that kind of went a step further than a call that Alexi Giannoulias had, the Secretary of State, senior driving licenses. And I bring this one up because I had the Secretary of State on the show earlier, actually, and but your bill would make it so over 75 drivers no longer have to take that re-up on their driver's test. Now, Giannoulias had a call to raise the age to 79. Correct. Why do you feel like it just should be gone altogether?
So it's a complicated issue, right? But first, the policy's ageist. There isn't something that magically happens on your birthday that determines whether you're a good or bad driver. When we look at some of the stereotypes that are out there that keep getting thrown at me, you know, the stereotype of the elderly person hitting the wrong pedal and going through the front of a store. Well, that person is already licensed to drive. They're in that car, they're holding a driver's license. So the process hasn't worked as is, right? What we should have in place, and this is not part of our legislation, but what I would like to see as part 2 of this, is we need to have in place a set of triggers. So Cole, let's say that you have a physical or mental condition that could affect the safe operation of a motor vehicle, and that includes diminishment. You know, an elderly person who's maybe dealing with some cognitive issues. Let's say you have a ticket or an accident. At the renewal cycle, you should need to affirmatively answer questions that would determine whether or not you need a higher level of screening. And those that are of any age that are having a physical condition or a mental capacity issue, absolutely they should be subjected to a behind-the-wheel test.
You had another package of bills that I wanted to look at as far as human trafficking is concerned. It's an interesting topic. It gets into that state versus federal law, how that interacts. What can Illinois do at the state level to try to combat this that is just inherently not only multi-jurisdictional, it involves so many states, it involves so many countries?
Yeah. So you bring up federal issue, especially with human trafficking, and the first thing I would want to do is give kudos to both Representative Kinzinger and Representative Hultgren, who were working on this issue 10, 15 years ago, and that's where I was first introduced to what the problems are. I've been told by some that the Rockford metropolitan area is one of the #1 trafficked communities in the Midwest as far as folks going through there and transiting there. So what can Illinois do, right? We can't control some of the federal things that are going on, but what we can do is look within our borders and see the plight of the trafficked individual. And what our bill sought to do is once that person comes out of trafficking, it allows them to seal or expunge, depending on the nature of the crime, those criminal records that they were forced to commit the crimes while being trafficked. And the reason for that is we want to enable that trafficked survivor to be able to get car loans, to be able to get an apartment background check completed, to be able to enroll in school and go on with their life without being burdened by their tragic history.
Well, Representative Keicher, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for joining us as well. That's going to do it for us on this week's episode. For Capital Connection, I'm Cole Hankey.